Welcome to Implausible Nature, your home for all things Black Templar. On today's video, we are talking the new data slate that GW just dropped for the quarterly balance that they do. It's been the talk of the town, obviously, the last few days. So we're going to dive into what our thoughts are on it and how it affects us as Black Templars, because there's some pretty significant changes in here, both for us as Space Marines and our potential foes as well. So let's go ahead and get into this. The big change here for one of the biggest changes here for Space Marines is going to be a new special rule. It's called Armor of Contempt, and it affects all Adeptus Astartes, Sanctus Astartes, Heretic Astartes, and Adeptus Sororitas models. So basically, anybody with power armor, except for Custodes. Sorry, Custodes. Um, and whenever each time an attack is allocated to one of those models, worsen the armor penetration characteristic of that attack by one. So that doesn't, should note, it does not apply to any model equipped with a Storm Shield, Relic Shield, or Combat Shield. Models there's a couple of different models in um, the Sisters and Grey Knights that don't get it, and then models that are under the effect of any other rule that worsens or reduces the armor penetration characteristic of that attack as well. So um, uh, they don't get it as well. But this is pretty huge. This is basically Marines now are gonna every shot, and this is a significant difference between ignores AP1. A lot of people are going to go, oh, we ignore AP1. That's not what this is. This is you reduce all the AP. So if it's AP3, now it's AP2, right? So it's
Yep.
a significant buff in durability for Space Marines, which is great because um, I have long said this that these days one of the Space Marines like signature things that we pay a lot for is almost every model in the army has a 3+ armor save. 3+ armor is not so good anymore with all the AP creep that has been happening lately. It used to be like a really super rare, really super powerful armor save back when you needed to meet or beat that that value with your AP, and then you just ignored it altogether. That's no longer the case now. We are in the era of reduces your armor save by the AP. So this is a significant buff. You get shot with something like plasma or anything AP3. Now it's AP2. You're saving on fives instead of sixes. That's double the amount of saves you're going to make. Um, so, Bob, what are your thoughts on this?
I think this is really huge for Space Marines in general, not just the Black Templars. So, what you're going to probably see as a result of this is you're going to see a meta shift. You're going to see a lot more Space Marines on the tabletop. Let's just be honest. You're going to see shifts to things that really didn't do well in the meta that were really powerful, like Blood Angels. They just didn't have the durability to survive long term against all of the different threats out there. Now they have a little bit more durability to really kind of put a dent out there. You're going to see more Blood Angels. You're going to see a lot more 2+ armor save things on the board. As far as the Templars go in general, I think this opens up a lot more doors for us. Now, it doesn't affect our storm shields. So, things like Vanguard veterans, you could start doing double claws on things like that, or even Terminators double claws. I think it decreases the value of the Storm Shield in general. Doesn't dismiss them. They're still things where they're still good because you still get the +1 to armor save, and it's a 4+ invulnerable
Four
instead of the
plus
five
is
plus.
still really good.
Yep, it's still decent. Now, what I will say though, pulled vow is not as strong as it used to be. So You may see in conversations on Discords, the various Black Templars Discords, ours, on Facebook, all those different talking about how Uphold is no longer useful because of the amount of AP needed to breach that 5+ save. While that's true in general, because now you're reducing the AP of different things, now you're going to need at least a 3 to hit that 5+.
which you
And
get anyway. So you really need AP4 to make it so
to get
that you're
past that.
getting a better save than you would otherwise.
Yeah. So obviously, you're not going to see very much plasma. Melta really is going to be the big ones. Tau have a few heavy duty, AP things out there, but they're not really common, honestly. So Drukari is a big one. So you're going to have to. We'll talk more about when we take the different vows in a different video. But it's just kind of a not as common take. It's not an auto take anymore as far as that goes. But with that being said, you do have the transhuman, which is going to be kind of important there.
Yep.
Um,
There's a lot of armies that are going to either get +1 to wound or reduce your toughness or have lots of high strength
mhm,
attacks. Those are still going to be great candidates to take uphold against because if you can avoid being wounded on twos all the time, that's a significant durability buff as well, even if the 5+ invulnerable save doesn't come into play quite as often as it used to.
yep.
Still, want to carefully consider that hey, how much strength 8 or higher do you have? How much +1 to wound do you have? Do you have anything that gives -1 toughness? Death Guard come to mind, for example. Those are factors you'll still want to consider if you don't know your opponent's army extremely well.
Yep. It's going to be uh, something that you really have to weigh. But on the other side of things, it's going to be some of those units that you haven't really been thinking about reasonably. Probably 6 months, 9 months since the newest codex has come out. Things like eliminators could be a game because you may not be in uphold anymore, so you might get covered. So those things might be in some play. Now, Alex will give his
Snipers.
argument against them,
Cowards.
but
They're cowards.
so they might see some play. Like I mentioned, the Lightning Claw Terminators, Assault Terminators. So you know what? They have a 5+ in Volt anyway, right? So why not? Go try those suckers out. Different things like
And a
Redemptors
2
and
plus armor
Vapors
save.
and the
Importantly, a
two
2
plus.
plus armor save.
Anything with a 2+ armor save is going to be extremely good. Another thing that's going to make these guys really, really kind of good, and we talked about this in a different video, is the Primaris Sword Brethren. This really helps them close the gap, especially with the Blade Guard veterans. So the big thing with the Blade Guard veterans is obviously they got 3 wounds and then the extra toughness gained by the Storm Shields. Yeah, that's kind of a big thing. But now the Primary Sword Brethren have something to give them additional durability. Now you do have some of that play with the damage to weapon on the Blade Guard veteran, but you can kind of get that a little bit different with different opponents with the Thunderhammer, Lightning Claws, etc.,
Yeah.
plus the stratagem support
There's a
on the.
lot of -1 damage out there too, which hurts their effectiveness on those. The other thing about Sword Brethren versus Blade Guard, and we touched on this on our video, which you can see here, um, the Sword Brethren are a lot cheaper, so you're getting more attacks per point, and those more attacks are going to translate into more things dead on the other side of the table. So thinking about it with this armor of contempt on Sword Brethren, sure they don't have a storm shield for that 4++, but um, they are still going to be taking saves on a 4 up on AP2 or a 5 up on AP3. That's significant, So those are that makes them a lot more durable,
Mhm.
so that they don't necessarily need the storm shield um, quite as much, especially because they are that much more cheaper. You can get more guys to absorb some more damage.
Yep. Yep. So they have that extra durability to really help. And the other thing is, if you're not in uphold vow, they, or even if you are, they still gain cover. So they still have that potential +1
Yep.
and dense. So they have the ability to really kind of take advantage of this and to do some work for you. Now, damage wise, obviously Bladeguard veterans will. We didn't have all the math with all the meta armies out there. The Bladeguard veterans do outperform the primary sword brethren on like custodies, especially the bikes and tile crisis suits a slight amount due to the damage too. But when you take full Gucci and you use some stratagem support, then
Yep.
you're going to get a lot more bang for your punch.
Yep.
But in general, this is a great thing for a lot of different units. It opens our codex up a whole lot more than we have been. Uh, it's going to expand out from things like Redemptors, Vanguard veterans, Terminators, things like Blade Guard veterans, those
Hear me out.
core units.
Centurions.
Yep, Centurions. Yeah, and literally anything. Centurions were really good with the Uphold,
Yep. They're
but it
really
was a
good with
lot.
this too. And now you can take the crux and have this on top of it. So it's
Yep,
-1 damage and -1 AP. Yeah. With
through
apothecary, have fun
yep with
trying
the
to kill those things.
Apothecary, throw champion of the
Hmm.
feast on the sergeant,
Hmm.
and I mean revive it. It's pretty
Yep.
tough. Now people will say, hey, they can. There's a lot of damage things out there that will really kind of hurt them,
There are.
uh, but
All the big guns are now like damage 3 plus D3. So there's definitely stuff that'll pop them pretty easily. But that's what the apothecary is there for, right? Red's that guy.
yep.
So, let's continue on here. There's the aircraft rule from before, that's unchanged. So indirect fire weapons. So, sort of the bane of everyone's existence right now, with Tau spamming the crap out of all these indirect fire weapons. I know it's not going to be as much of an issue, or at least it wouldn't have been as much of an issue in the new Tyranid Codex because they nerfed the crap out of Hive Guard. But prior to that, everyone hated the Hive Guard because they were just blowing everything off the board, with indirect fire. So now, indirect fire, when they target something that they cannot see to the shooter, each time an attack is made with that weapon against that target this phase, worsen the ballistic skill characteristic of that attack by 1, and add 1 to any armor saving throws made against that attack. So there's two key things to take away from this. First, it's worsen the ballistic skill,
Yep.
not -1 to hit, which means when you have dense cover and you can't see them, that's a -2 effectively to hit, because you're reducing the ballistic skill, which is not a to hit modifier, and then you also get a to hit modifier on top of that, which
Yep.
means you're going to be essentially at -2. So really huge detriment there. And then also add 1 to the armor save, notably not light cover, because there's a lot of ones that just ignore light cover. Notably not light cover, so you'll always get that +1 to armor save from that. So this really like cuts the knees, cuts the legs out from under whoosh,
Yep.
indirect fire weapons. Notably, Imperial Guard are completely exempt from it, as they should be, because that army needs all the help they can get right now. And that's kind of their thing, right? Like they have so many tanks that just shoot from the back line, like artillery. Like that is their shtick, sort of.
Yep.
So I would expect them to retain that going into their codex whenever that may come. Um, sometime 5 years from now or something. Um, sorry, Imperial Guard. Uh, so, um, so yeah, those are two really big important things that really just cut the teeth out of a lot of these indirect fire weapons that were just being so abused in the meta, like particularly Tau.
Yeah, it's going to be huge. It's really feel bad when you do a good job and you deploy and you're out of line of sight of everything, and they still blow you
It's
off
like,
the board.
oh well, here's 60 airburst frag shots.
I mean,
Thanks. Pick that
It
unit up.
lasted only like 2 weeks or 3 weeks during the summer when the orcs
Yeah.
with their
Oh yeah, all the buggies.
the buggies were out, and
It
they
took
had to
that out
nerf it
so fast.
instantaneously because it was like a 90% win rate, even worse
Yep.
than the Harlequins, because literally they were tabling people turn one.
Yeah.
Yeah, they nerfed the buggies already, uh, but now they're really dead
Yeah.
because they're simply not going to be able to hit you.
Yep.
So
Orcs don't have good BS, so
yeah, and then Tau, obviously they're going to take the hits. They have the ability to get around it for one unit, but I mean, there's a lot of things out there. Even Space Marines, that's going to be hurt a little bit, but a lot of our indirect is used for stratagem support. Um,
right. People we got a lot of I saw a lot of questions asking, is the whirlwind dead? No. No, it's not. If you want to take a whirlwind, you're not taking it because it deals damage. Like it's never been a high damage dealing weapon or platform. You're taking it because of the stratagem suppression fire to deny overwatch and make them fight last for
yeah,
1 CP. And all you have to do is hit. So you're going to take the 2d6 one, and even if you roll minimum shots, we're hitting on fours most likely, unless there's intervening dents. So you're all you have to do is hit, and on 2d6 shots, you're probably going to get a hit.
yeah,
So which is wonderful. So moving on, bodyguard abilities. So, boy, did they destroy this rule. Uh, and, here's the thing. So, Bodyguard, when it was predominantly only Space Marines that had this rule, which was, hey, you can't shoot my character at all, even if you ignore Lookout, sir, because this rule says you can't. There weren't a ton of Space Marine characters that were really abusing the crap out of this rule, right?
yeah,
Um, because there weren't a ton of Space Marine characters that could like really do anything at you from range. So it wasn't a super big deal, right? But with uh, other armies, as more and more armies got this rule, in particular, Tau is another one that was abusing the crap out of it. Um, with their crisis commanders, which can shoot really well. It was, as you said, another feels bad, moment, and it's just a really, really overpowered rule. And when you start giving it to every army, not that Space Marine should have it, because whatever, it's fine, because it was still broken with them. It just didn't mean as much, right? So now all it does is it allows them to get Lookout Sir even if the unit protecting them has less than 3 models,
yeah,
which most of them do. They start at like two, like company vets, for example, or a minimum 2-man unit. So this took care of another egregious flaw in the core rules, in my opinion.
yeah. And it does affect the Black Templars specifically because there is some builds and some armies out there where we even have recommended taking company veterans to protect Romaldus.
Yeah,
Now, there was that kind of a cheesy little play with them, strategery, throwing those company vets behind blocking line of sight terrain and having Grimaldus stretch out so
yeah,
he couldn't be targeted. But with the advent of all the indirect out there, it wasn't even mattering because they were just killing the
just killing
company
them
vets
anyway.
anyway.
Yeah.
So it didn't
So
really help us.
So
Um,
I've also seen a lot of folks say, "Oh, well, is Grimaldus, no longer viable for us?" Of course he is. He's so good, it doesn't matter. And honestly, there was a lot of my list. I know a lot of your list, Bob. A lot of the top tournament lists from competitive Black Templar players that we were seeing didn't include company vets anyway.
yeah,
So you're going to take Grimaldus if you're going to a tournament or you're trying to be as competitive as possible. A good majority of the time, you're going to want Grimaldus in your list, depending on what's in the list, of course. He's just that good. Yes, he gives up 12 victory points, 13 if he's the warlord. But uh, to use Tom Ogden's words, if you've lost Grimaldus, you've probably already lost the game. And snipers are a thing, but snipers are not super great. Um, and if you have an apothecary in your list, you can heal the servitors. So it's just one of those things. I'm still gonna run Grimaldus. I don't think he's lost any value.
Yeah. So I'm a little bit less enthusiastic about snipers than Alex is. I think they're going to see a little bit of a resurgence, um, especially from Space Marine players using eliminators. I think they're going to come out to play because it's a really cheap unit.
Yeah,
It can do basically fade and fire, essentially. It's kind of a fun little thing. So you might have to be a little bit more wary with Grimaldus with the sniper meta because Harlequins can still take the Death Jester. Now that thing is it's nasty, but it got nerfed a little bit with this data slate. Um, but it's still pretty good. Uh, and then you have like Adeptus Mechanicus that have their Rangers, Eldora have Rangers. So there's some things you have to kind of watch out a little bit for now. But like I said, and Alex said, you're not really taking company vets anymore due to the indirect that was out there, even
right.
now with the nerfs to it. So it's kind of what it is. Grimaldus is you know what you get out of them, and if
Hmm.
they take them out, I mean, you're just gonna have to deal with it.
Yeah,
It just
and honestly, I think especially in competitive scenes at tournaments and things like that, your opponent is going to look at what can I score the most easily, and assassinate is not going to be one of them, more than likely. So they're going to look for things that because maybe you take out their snipers early on. Maybe you keep Grimaldus out of their line of sight because generally snipers don't want to move. So there's a number of things at play, and um, it's one of those ones that if you do have snipers in your list, you're gonna have to assess how easy is it going to be for me to get assassinate with this.
yeah.
So I don't think it's going to see a ton of issues. All right, so we're not going to go through every single change with these. There are some changes for sisters, which make them better. They get some extra miracle dice, which is nice for them. Astra Militarum got a significant buff to las guns. um, so now, well, their infantry squads are also just a flat 60 points no matter what gear they have. So that's like basically free 20 points per squad. Um, but one of the biggest things that they got was the Hammer of the Emperor. And basically, what it is when you shoot las guns, a 6 to hit, an unmodified 6 to hit, auto wounds. That's kind of insane.
Yes.
What do you think about that, Bob?
I think that this single handedly stalls out the need for having uh, a new Astra Militarum Codex.
Hey,
Honestly,
there you go,
all you need
folks.
to put
Astra Militarum coming in 10th edition.
I mean, seriously, you all you need to do is put a bunch of guys on the board, which you are doing anyway,
Yep,
point them at whatever you want to kill, and when you're throwing down, first rank fire with these guys, and you're shooting, I don't know, 20, 30 shots with these guys, you're getting
it's a
all
lot of
kinds
auto
of auto
wounds.
wounds. You're going
The
to be killing Imperial
rerolls,
Knights with a single infantry squad.
lasgun. Yeah,
I mean, with las guns. I mean, it's
yeah.
cute. It's crazy.
It's a little much in my opinion, but we'll see how it shakes out. They are still just guardsmen, so they die to a fart in the wind.
That's true,
So
but
you
it could
know,
be scary.
uh, it could definitely be scary. You get a full squad shooting at you. It's gonna hurt. Even with AP 0, I mean that's a lot of wounds. A lot of wounds. So um, something to watch out for. Admech got a couple of changes as well. Nothing earth shattering or oh my gods.
Yeah,
Sally's got a nice buff, so their chapter tactic or part of their chapter tactic was the ignore AP thing, which we all get now, and instead you cannot reroll wounds against salamanders, which is um, pretty good. Reroll wounds are not super common, but it's enough that that's a nice durability boost
Yep.
for them. So yeah, Death Guard got OBSEC on their Terminators. Yay! Because we really needed OBSEC Death Shroud.
Yep. And they
But
have
that's a
the armor of contempt, so that
and
makes
they have
them
Armor of
super,
Contempt.
super
And they have
durable.
Armor of Contempt. Their Plague Burst crawlers did get nerfed by the
Yep.
Indirect Fire because they love to Indirect Fire those things. That is they'll have to do better positioning with those. But they get Armor of Contempt too, and they're tough 8 and they're gross. So they're really durable anyway. It's not like they have to worry too much about being able to be shot by something else. Harlequins, both Star Weavers and Void Weavers, took a a points hike. Void Weavers, GW basically just said, you know what? Let's
We
get rid of
sold
this
as
unit.
many. We sold them.
We sold as many packs of 9 Void Weavers as we could. So here's a 50% points increase. So
Yep.
we're not going to see 9 clown cars in a list anymore. But they also made a couple other changes to a couple of buffs that they toned down. Um, Bob, you know this army better than I do.
Yep.
Do you think this was enough?
Uh, in this specific build, yes, I think it was. It's going to turn the Harlequins from easy mode, just sitting across the board and just shooting you
Yeah.
until you're dead, into something a little bit different. So you're no longer going to see light Sadith armies, which was 99% of the lists out there with the 9 uh, builds. What you're going to see is you're still going to see the Star Reavers, even though they took a 15-point hike. They'll just eat that with some of the troop costs and some of their weaponry. But you're going to see Dark Sadith. And what they're going to do instead of the Void Reavers, you're going to get the Sky Reavers, the jet bikes, and they're going to switch over to that, and you're going to see some Star Bolas and differing haywire things with those instead. And if you remember from their previous version in their codex, they were kind of scary. Now they're not as good as they were in the previous version, but they still can do a ton of damage. They can very easily kill vehicles and high uh, wound things. They're super tough. They got Strabon support. And now, when you finally kill them in close combat, they'll be fighting you before they die. So that's
Oh
going to be something
boy.
that you're going to
Can't wait
see.
for that.
So what's going to transition is buffs and shooting to now you cannot kill anything without getting
Attacked back.
attacked
Yeah.
back in close
Yep.
combat, which is especially prevalent in the Black Templars. Now, not going to affect some of those other Space Marine uh, opponents like the Ultramarines and Iron Hands and such like that as much. But we do have units that want to get in close combat, and we're going to get in close combat with these guys because they also do too now. But they're going to fight, which is going to be something that's going to hurt. So you
Yep.
have to anticipate that.
Yep. So yeah. So I think this is gonna knock them down a little bit.
Yep.
I still think they're going to be really dominant, in the meta. So we may see another round of nerfs to them. We'll just have to see how it shakes out, especially with the other. They were already killing everyone, so
I
hopefully it tones them down enough that they're beatable.
Yeah, I don't
Um,
think it's going to be like the easy mode 75% win rate. It's going to be more
you
like
mean like
55 to
90% win rate?
in
Because
tournament.
that's what they were without mirror matches. Is
Yeah.
90%. It's absurd.
So you're going to be seeing like 55, 60% because they're going to be a lot tougher to win with because they actually have to
Have to
engage with the
play.
opponent.
They have to actually
Yeah.
play 40k. Imagine that. So,
So, but they're still going to be really strong in what they do.
yep,
But you're going to see other armies be able to compete, especially Space Marines, Death
yep,
Guard. Different things are going to be able to compete with them, which
yep,
actually play very well into them, like the Death Guard.
yeah.
So, well, we'll see.
So, yep. So that brings us to Tau. So Tau took a few extra nerfs too, not just Indirect Fire and the Bodyguard, which they were the primary abusers of such. Um, they took a kind of a nerf to Motka, which is still busted in my opinion, but that's a different story. So now instead of getting the AP, they get to reroll a wound roll of 1, which is pretty good. You know, army wide reroll a wound roll of 1 after you've moved and advanced and fired every gun you had with no ballistic skill penalty, unless you're indirect firing. Um, so they did that. They also changed the devastating counterstrike tenant a little bit to not be as powerful. Probably the biggest change was Broadside's lost core, which
Yeah,
means they went from a ton of buffs to not very many buffs.
yeah. And these guys were the workhorses of a lot of their ranged weaponry in
Hmm.
most lists. That reroll hits, reroll wounds, ton of damage, all that stuff. But it all relied on core, and now they don't have it. So now they're just going based off the strength of their data sheet, which is still pretty good, but they're not going to be like the. That's the first thing you're putting in your tile list because they're so good.
Yep. Yep. And then they also changed their one of their stratagems so that it can't. It's a negative charged strat, so that it can't be cumulative with other stuff. So,
Yeah,
which is good because that was pretty oppressive for melee armies. Obviously, armies that wanted to shoot didn't care, but for us, it matters. So we want to get in combat with these guys because we want to make little Tau origamis and then rip them up into tiny shreds. So, so yeah. So overall, some pretty massive changes. Notably, something that's missing from this is Imperial Knights. No more OBSEC for you.
yep.
Presumably, they'll get it back in their upcoming codex, which will be out
Few
probably in the
weeks.
next month, few weeks or so. Um, but we don't know that for sure. So an interesting change point there. But yeah, overall, huge, huge shakeup of the meta. We're going to see, I think, a lot more parity. Hopefully, these armies that were very oppressive are not as oppressive. Oh, we didn't talk about custodes
Yeah, because they're so you're never going to see them ever
because
again.
we're never going to
That's
see custodes anymore because they nerfed the crap out of custodes. So they man, now don't get me wrong, custodes needed to be nerfed because they were ridiculous in my opinion.
at least I could
But
beat them.
this was way more than I thought they were gonna get. So custodes they made it so that only their troops are OBSEC now instead of the whole army. So that significantly hampers their ability to hold objectives. They also made it so that the three most oppressive stratagems are now once per game, and those are the esteemed amalgam, the Emperor's Auspice, and the martial discretion stratagems are now just once per game, and those can only be used on infantry, so no more on bikers.
Yep.
Um, so, uh, to be honest, I two of those are not. They're really good, but they weren't nearly as bad as the Emperor's Auspice. That was probably the worst feels bad strat. I thought they would just increase the cost on it. Instead, they just flat out made it once per game, which really makes it into more of a gimmick or a desperation ploy than a useful strategy. So,
And really,
um,
they were using them on the bikes anyway. So
Yeah.
now they are just like, okay, what are we gonna do? Because their bikes aren't core,
Yep.
they don't have the defensive traits, and yeah, they do some damage, but their main defensive thing was the
Yeah.
Emperor's auspice.
Yeah.
So
So
game
now they're going to
over.
look pretty on people's shelves. Uh, so don't expect to see too many custodes at tournaments anymore. GW really kicked their teeth in, which you know, I, I don't want anyone's army to get totally nerfed beyond recognition, but um,
Let's be
uh,
honest, you only paid $120 for it anyway.
I'm not super sorry. So um, I don't I'm not a super big fan of custodes.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's the data slate. Big meta shakeup. What final thoughts do you have, Bob?
So, as mentioned before, we're going to have a video on the vows and kind of different points that we're going to be playing on, but this is a big one. In general, I think this is going to shake up the meta a lot. There's going to be a ton more parity. You're going to see a lot more Space Marines going forward. So, just be prepared for that because this is a huge durability bonus for most Space Marine armies where we were durable already because we had Uphold.
Hmm.
But now there's going to be people that are going to be saying that, hey, other armies were buffed more. I still don't think that there is a Space Marine army that is better than Black Templars due to
Maybe Dark Angels, but their Talon Master got nerfed hard with the Bodyguard rule.
yeah,
So yeah, and that was one of their key units. So I think Black Templars, if we're even if we're not the best Space Marine chapter, we are among Space Marine chapters S tier and
yeah,
still one of the best. So
yeah. I think we're just fine with the way it
yep.
is. It opens the book on a lot of other units, especially a lot of those Primaris units that we haven't really been using or talking about for a long time.
Hmm.
And their potential is is there now.
Yep.
Gravis, you know, your eradicators are much more durable now. Different things that we have that are going to be a lot more difficult. And I really like that Games Workshop kind of gave this as a wholesale like Space Marine power armor thing across the board instead of just reducing hundreds of weapons AP by one. I think it was really targeted but broad change
Well,
that really kind of helps us.
and honestly, it fits the lore. Like power armor is supposed to be one of the pinnacles. I mean, it is the pinnacle of Imperial tech. And even amongst Xenos armies, power armor is, easily as good or better than most of their tech, right? So, it fits the lore. It feels Space Marine. And they needed something because I've said this a lot. 2 wounds just doesn't feel like
Yeah,
it matters as much anymore. 2 wounds and 3+ save just doesn't feel like it matters as much anymore. So this is a big buff for Space Marines in general, and it opens a lot of doors for us. We already had great list variety. Now we're gonna have even more. So
yeah.
that's all we've got for you today. Thanks for sticking around. I know this was a longer video, but there was a lot to cover. GW definitely unloaded the meta truck here on us. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Let us know what you think of the changes. Are there any that you liked or didn't like? What do you think of Armor of Contempt? Let us know down in the comments. Also, come check us out on Discord. We have a great community of folks who are talking Black Templars, tactics, strategies, everything to do with Black Templars and 40K in general. We also have a Patreon, so if you like what you see and you'd like to support us, we really appreciate that. We got a link down in the description. Our patrons also get fun things like early access to videos and Discord roles. So come check us out. And that's all we've got for today. Until next time, keep on crusading.